Hey everyone! In this video, we look at 5 intriguing cold cases from decades ago that were solved in 2021. Welcome to Story and Mystery. The first case on our list is Annette Schnee and Bobby Joe Oberholzer. In 1982, 2 dead bodies of 2 different women were found in Breckenridge, Colorado. Crime scenes were miles apart, and bodies were found every 6 months. However, police believed that the same man killed both women on the same night. The one thing they have in common? Orange socks, Jan. 6, 1982. Bobby Joe Oberholzer, 29, left home at 7:15 a.m. His day started as usual and drove to work. Jeff Oberholzer was Bobby's husband. He ran an appliance repair business, and she worked as a manager. They had been married for 4.5 years at the time of Bobby's death and lived in Alma, 14 miles from where her body was found. At 6:20 p.m., Jeff received a call from Bob saying he was out drinking with friends after work. He asked her if she wanted him to pick her up, but she told him she could drive home. Jeff made dinner and waited for Bobby to come home. Once he fell asleep. He woke up around midnight to find that his wife had not returned. Jeff drove to Breckenridge to look for Bobby and was told by friends that she left the bar around 7:30 p.m. They waited for him to drive home. When Jeff reported Bobby missing to the police, they told him it was too early to file a report. Finally, he drove back home to wait for his wife. The next morning, a farmer 30 miles from Breckenridge found Bobby's driver's license on his property. While Jeff and 2 friends were on their way to pick him up, they made a disturbing discovery. Something blue in a snow-covered field. It was his backpack that he always carried with him. Next to the backpack was one of Bobby's gloves with blood and several bloody tissues on it. Jeff's friends helped him organize the search. 2 hours later, they found Bobby's lifeless body more than 15 miles from where her backpack was found. She was shot twice. The woman's house keys were found at the scene. Police found 3 exciting clues at the crime scene. The only marks near the body were Bobby's. A plastic rope was tied around one of his wrists. 1 orange sock was found nearby. The same day, Bobby Joe's body was found, and another woman, 21-year-old Annette Schnee, was reported missing. Annette was a cocktail waitress in Frisco, Colorado, and, like Bobby, traveled frequently to and from work. Because of the similarities, the police immediately connected the 2 cases. Investigators questioned Jeff about Annette. At first, she denied knowing him, but after seeing his picture on the news, she remembered meeting him once. Jeff claimed that he once picked Annette up for a ride and gave her his business card, but hasn't seen or heard from her since that day. He also denied any involvement in Bobby's disappearance or Bobby's death. Annette's body was found on July 3, 1982, 6 months after her disappearance, and 13 miles from where Bobby Joe's body was found. Police were shocked to discover he was wearing an orange sock to the match. Jeff's business card was found in his wallet. Jeff Oberholzer immediately became the prime suspect. Authorities have been trying to piece together a scenario of what may have happened on the night of January 6th. Annette Schnee was last seen deep in conversation with an unidentified woman with dark hair in Breckenridge around 4 p.m. Police believed Annette was driving home around 5 p.m. The suspect picked her up and drove 20 miles south of Breckenridge. He took her to a small cul-de-sac where he assaulted her in his car. While getting dressed, he forgot to put on another pair of orange socks and was trying to escape when he was shot in the back while running. Police believed the suspect then drove back to Breckenridge and found his second victim, Bobby Joe Oberholzer. He drove Bobby to a scenic overlook 10 miles south of Breckenridge, where he attempted to attack Bobby. Bobby was able to avoid the vehicle as another orange sock fell out. The suspect then chased him down the road, shot him twice as he turned away. The fact that Jeff Oberholzer knew both victims was more than just a coincidence, police said. 2 months after her death, Jeff took a test and passed. From day 1, Jeff claimed he had an alibi. He said he was at home with a visiting friend at the time of her death. For almost 9 years, no one found this man. In December 1990, he finally came forward and was questioned that evening. Investigators interviewed a man who claimed to have been at Jeff's house. However, her time and Jeff's visiting time did not match. Jeff Oberholzer has always maintained his innocence, insisting that the suspect must be someone he knows. She wouldn't go with a stranger, especially if he had given her the chance to take him. For years, the blood found on Bobby's gloves and tissues in her backpack was thought to be her own. However, in the early 1990s, a DNA test revealed that it came from a man. Testing also showed that Jeff did not abandon it. As a result of this and other evidence, including several alibi witnesses, he was later identified as a suspect in the case. Police were still investigating several different suspects. One of them was Thomas Edward Luther, a taxi driver who beat and assaulted a hitchhiker after picking him up in Breckenridge in February 1982. While in prison, he bragged that he was responsible for the deaths. According to his girlfriend, he did not come home that fateful night. He also lied to investigators and said he was working at the time. Another suspect, Tracy Petrocelli, killed his fiancée in 1981 and went on a multi-state crime spree. At the time, he was staying at Annette's workplace at the Holiday Inn in Frisco. However, neither suspect's DNA matched evidence from the crime scene. On February 24, 2021, a 70-year-old man named Alan Lee Phillips was arrested and charged with the death. He was also charged with kidnapping and assault with a deadly weapon. He is being held without bail. Genetic genealogy was used to link DNA found at the crime scene to him. Investigators suspect he was involved in other crimes in Colorado. Unfortunately, Bobby Kelly's brother and father Thomas died before they could find out who was responsible for taking her life. Case number 2. October 9th, 1988, Gail Barris was spotted leaving a coffee shop with her husband early in the morning. That was the last time Barris was seen alive. Gail Barris was a 30-year-old single mother from Michigan. Life was hard and she worked at 2 different local bars to make ends meet and take care of her children. Between 3 and 4 a.m. on October 9th, 1988, Barris was spotted leaving Speed's coffee shop in Battle Creek, Michigan. He was accompanied by a dark-haired man, and that was the last time anyone saw her alive. On October 25th, hunters in the nearby town of Emmett made a gruesome discovery. They found the body of a lifeless woman on River Road. The woman was severely stabbed and beaten. Authorities quickly identified Gail Barris's body, and an extensive investigation ensued. Witnesses were identified and interviewed, and evidence was collected from the crime scene. On October 22nd, just days before Barris's body was found, and nearly 2 weeks after Barris disappeared, authorities contacted a 24-year-old man named Roger Playton. Playton's car matched the description of another kidnapping and assault victim. At 4:30 p.m., authorities attempted to arrest him at gunpoint as he walked to his car in a Bellevue parking lot. Plato became aggressive and refused to cooperate and fight. He was shot while struggling with the detective's gun and died of his wounds. He was never interviewed. Authorities conducted an autopsy and a blood sample was taken before the body was cremated, which was kept in a private laboratory at the time. Investigators in the Barris case turned their attention to Plato's friend and former roommate, Richard Compton. Compton had an extensive criminal career, but when contacted by investigators, he recanted and denied knowing anything. With no further leads or developments, the Barris case finally went cold. In 2018, Battle Creek Cooler detective Scott Marshall reinvestigated the case. One of his first discoveries was that Compton's DNA had never been tested, and he became his #1 suspect. After some research, Detective Marshall learns that he died in 2009 and was buried in the county's International Cemetery in Austin, Texas. Compton was 59 when he died. Detective Marshall obtained a search warrant and traveled to Texas to exhume Compton's body. After an investigation, it was found that Compton's DNA samples did not match those found on Barris's body, but previously unidentified hairs associated with the crime scene did. In November 2020, there was a lucky break in the case. Sergeant Chris Batchick of the Calhoun County Sheriff's Department inventoried evidence at the department and found a vial containing a blood sample taken from Plato. On January 30th, 2021, it was announced that a state police laboratory identified blood and DNA found on the body of Gail Barris, confirming that Playton was responsible for attacking her and taking her life. Compton must have seen this happen. Both men are now dead and never had to pay for the horrific crime, but Barris's family expressed relief that there is finally some closure. Detective Marshall said, DNA technology is the future of solving cold cases. Case number 3. Stephanie Summers, August 30th, 1980. Stephanie Summers was supposed to spend the day with her nephew. They were going to celebrate his birthday and spend a nice day together. However, she never appeared. The police eventually found her lifeless body in her home. Stephanie Summers was a 36-year-old woman who lived in an apartment in Silver Lake, Los Angeles, California. She only recently moved there from Newhall, Santa Clarita, and she couldn't be more excited. On that fateful day, August 30th, 1980, she was in her apartment ready to spend the day with her 11-year-old nephew, Kelly Roberts of the Santa Clarita Valley. She was planning to pick him up and take him to Six Flags Magic Mountain as a late birthday present. Kelly got dressed up especially for the occasion. However, Stephanie never made it there. Concerned, her family contacted the authorities, who went to check her apartment. There, they made a grisly discovery. Stephanie's lifeless body was laying inside her apartment. Forensic evidence was collected at the crime scene, including that from Stephanie's body, and an extensive investigation began. Several people were interviewed, however, the leads went nowhere, and the case went cold. The case remained unsolved for more than 3 decades, until Los Angeles detectives received a new lead in 2014. It involved a man named Harold Anthony Parkinson, who lived a mile away from the victim and may have been the prime suspect in the case. Case on June 19, 2014, a DNA sample collected from Parkinson matched the DNA profile taken from Summers' body, and he was charged with taking her life. Parkinson, on the other hand, was already in prison, serving 15 years to life at Choctaw Valley State Prison in Blythe for another unrelated attack. This second attack took place in Los Angeles on April 8, 1981, when he shot a man named Derek Eugene Perry. Perry succumbed to his injuries and died. Parkinson was arrested and began serving his sentence on March 5, 1982. Perry's sister Dolly said at the time, "I remember the last meal I had with Derek. It was at Sizzler. He hugged me and told me he loved me." Described her older sister brother as a great BMX rider and surfer and a great big brother. The motive for the attack was not known or disclosed by authorities. After learning that Parkinson was blamed for Summers' death, Dolly said he was a dangerous man and should never be allowed back on the streets. In court, Parkinson's lawyer argued that his client did not attack Summers, claiming that they were romantically involved and slept together a few days before he attacked her. However, according to prosecutors, after a brief marriage to a man, Summers had told friends that she was only attracted to women. Los Angeles County District Court Judge Kathleen Kennedy described Summers' case as a very degrading, horrific, and violent crime. Justice Kennedy believed that there was indisputable evidence that Parkinson was responsible. On February 4, 2021, Harold Parkinson, now 61, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Case number 4. Next, Sylvia Mae Quayle, in August 1981. William Quayle went to visit his daughter's house in Cherry Hills Village, near Denver, Colorado. She happened to live just 150 feet from his house. What he discovered there was something that no parent should have to witness. Friends said Sylvia Mae Quayle, 34, was ambitious, vivacious, friendly, and lit up a room when she walked in. She loved history and worked as a secretary in an architectural office. An excellent cook, she also opened her own business specializing in wedding cakes. She had many friends and was an avid artist. She enjoyed making pottery, which her sister still keeps in her home 3 decades later. Sylvia was very close to her family, especially her parents who lived about 150 meters from her house, and she would have coffee with them every morning. That morning, on August 4, 1981, shortly before 8 a.m., the police were dispatched to Sylvia's house after her father found her lifeless body and called 911. Sylvia Quayle spoke with her sister on the phone around 11 p.m. the night before. So investigators knew she was killed from the time she hung up the phone that night until her father arrived at her home 9 hours later. Her father, William Quayle, told police he arrived to find his daughter lying naked. Floor of the living room. The investigation revealed that she had been shot, stabbed multiple times, strangled, and beaten. An autopsy confirmed the cause of death as blood loss. Investigators found 2 important clues at the crime scene. The phone line in the living room and outside the house had been cut, The bathroom window screen was removed and thrown into the tall weeds. About 140 more pieces of evidence were collected from the scene, and over time, various technological advances were used on the items as investigators tried to solve the crime. In 1983, 2 years after her death, forensic technicians found an alternative light source using DNA material that did not come from Sylvia, from the carpet on which her body lay. That same year brought hope to investigators and the Quayle family when notorious serial killer Otis Elwood Toole confessed to killing Sylvia. Many of Toole's confessions were later found to be false, as were those of his friend Henry Lee Lucas. Lucas, who died in a Texas prison in 2001, claimed hundreds of victims, but authorities could only confirm a handful. In 1993, Toole was dismissed due to the death of Sylvia. At the time, DNA tests on the evidence in the case showed that Toole was not the source of the DNA found at the crime scene 12 years earlier. In 1995, part of the carpet was cut and delivered to the Colorado office. Research must be attempted. 5 years later, the sample provided authorities with a DNA profile of an unknown man. However, no match was found, and the case remained cold. In January 2020, Cherry Hills Village cold case investigators decided to use the latest genealogy technology on Sylvia. 4 months later, the name appeared: David Dwayne Anderson. At the time of Sylvia's death, Anderson, then 22, lived a few miles away. Cold case detectives began investigating Anderson. A certain investigator, Robert Fuller, traveled to Cozad, where Anderson now lived, to secretly collect the suspect's DNA. Fuller found 2 garbage bags that Anderson threw in the garbage. Inside were 15 items that may have contained Anderson's genetic material. Among the items was a jar of vanilla cola. On January 29, 2021, genetic material taken from a can of vanilla Coke matched material found on the body and at the crime scene. When investigators looked into Anderson's past, they found at least 8 home and business burglaries between 1981 and 1986. In one burglary, he removed and threw a window screen to gain entry. Anderson, now 62, was arrested on February 10, 2021. William and Mary Quayle did not live to see their daughter's killer charged. William Quayle died in 1999, and his wife followed 10 years later. Case number 5. Latest event, Bonnie Baker. On the evening of June 30, 1998, Bonnie Baker had fun with her friends to celebrate her recent promotion. Her boyfriend at the time came with her to the party. After a few tense moments, they both left. This was the last time Bonnie was seen alive. Bonnie Baker was a 47-year-old woman from Denver, Colorado, where she shared an apartment with her boyfriend, Crespin Nene Perez. The couple met at a Fort Morrison restaurant where they both worked. Bonnie was the perfect employee, never calling in sick and always arriving on time, which earned her a promotion from her boss. The same could not be said of Nene Perez. He had been laid off a month earlier on disability. Bonnie decided she should celebrate her recent promotion and went with a group of friends to Golden's friend's house, where they spent the night partying. The party was going great. Everyone was having fun, drinking and dancing, but things took a turn for the worse when Bonnie's boyfriend arrived. Nene Perez arrived at the party and almost immediately started making a scene. He was jealous after seeing his girlfriend dancing with her friends in the living room. Several witnesses at the party later said that Nene Perez appeared to have taken illegal substances. His eyes were red and shiny, and he fumed with anger. He kept looking at everyone at the party as if looking for trouble. Bonnie's last known words to a friend were, "I better go now, or it will get worse." The pair were seen leaving the party early, together, as the situation escalated. That same evening, around 8 p.m., authorities received a call from an unknown woman. She reported that a man had taken a woman's life in an apartment on West Louisiana Avenue. Claimed that the man drove to Mexico in a red Colorado license plate vehicle with the body of a woman in the trunk, whom he planned to kill somewhere along the way. While monitoring the call, police realized it was coming from a payphone, so they went to the given address. There were no signs of a fight in the apartment, and no one was found. The next day, Nene Perez's car was involved in a single vehicle crash near Globe, Arizona, but he fled the scene on foot. The car was impounded, and blood was taken as evidence from the trunk during the inspection. The case was forgotten for a while, and only a year later, something came to light. On July 31st, 1999, two boys were riding in a remote part of the Navajo tribes of New Mexico. There, they came across a human skull and contacted the authorities. After exploring the area, researchers found several more skeletal remains. Despite the finding, the results of the autopsy and the cause of death remained unclear. The case went cold because there was no evidence and no correlation between the missing person Bonnie Baker and the recovered remains. In October 2012, Detective Kenneth Klaus of Denver was assigned to Bonnie's case and immediately called the FBI in New Mexico to discuss the woman's disappearance. DNA samples from remains found on Navajo territory were sent to the Denver Crime Lab for forensic testing. They matched the samples collected by Bonnie Baker. On April 4, 2013, an unidentified female came forward and testified that she was the one who called 911 the night Bonnie went missing. She also claimed he cleaned the couple's apartment after the disappearance and before authorities arrived, where broken plates and glass covered the floor and the kitchen table was overturned. The unidentified woman also provided a full description of the red vehicle, later identified as a Geoprism, and its registration number. And, she says, Nene Perez told her that night, "I know you don't like Bonnie. Something bad happened to us. You'll never have to see Bonnie again because I'm going to make her disappear." Authorities have not yet released the woman's relationship to the couple. Another witness identified Nene Perez as the driver of the red car. Evidence from witness interviews and forensic DNA testing concluded that there was enough evidence to arrest Nene Perez, who was living in Mexico at the time. Prosecutors say Bonnie Baker's body was left in a shallow grave. The preliminary hearing for the case took place on January 27, 2021 in a court in Denver, and Nene Perez is accused of kidnapping and taking Baker's life. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You don't want to miss out on what we have next. As always, comment what story or case you want to know more about. Thank you for watching.